All right, guys. I know it is very, very random that I'm going live right now. It's been like some time since I've even been live, and whoever catches the replay will catch the replay. I'll try to make it an hour, basically. Um, and forgive the sound. I need to get a microphone, of course. That's one thing, inshallah, I will get soon. I will, yes, get a microphone. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about some things, basically open topics, things that I see going on now, being outside of the United States, and looking at things that are happening in the United States. Um, One thing I want to say is that even though I'm, I'm out of the United States for good, you know, um, I still see things that are going on because, unfortunately, it's very, very unfortunate that United States. What happens is that the things that they do, unfortunately, it's very unfortunate, but the things that they do affect the whole world. That's the problem. Um, it's on. I don't want to say it's a dependency or anything like that, but I just want to say it's just a cause and effect because now you have Trump who is deporting illegals, not even back to their home country, their country of origin. He's just scattering them around the world. And it makes no sense because okay, you're putting them in a place where they have no idea about, and then they're left to fend for themselves. I mean, this makes no sense. They're left to like try to get back to their country of origin. It's very weird to me. Why not send them back to their country of origin? For example, let's take a hypothetical example. Why would you send a Venezuelan to, let's say, South Sudan if the plane ride is in proximity or closer to the United States than it is to South Sudan, to Venezuela? You simply have to fly. You simply have to go there, fly, and you're in, yeah, you're in Venezuela in a matter of, I want to say, in a matter of hours, right? So yeah, it makes no sense to me that he made that rule that, oh, we're going to send migrants to or we're going to send illegals to countries that's not in their origin and they're like so far away. Like that makes no damn sense at all. But what I really want to talk about, one of the topics I really want to talk about, and then I'll move on to the social aspects. I want to talk about the, this has always bothered me, and I'm speaking as a Muslim man. This really has bothered me a lot, but it always bothered me when Muslims in the West get involved in Western politics. It's like you're getting involved in something that is contrary to everything that Islam, true Islam, not the one you see in Syria, not the one you see in, like, let's just say Saudi Arabia with their human rights abuses, not what you see in Egypt, where they're like not even letting food get to our Palestinian brothers and sisters. Not that Islam, right? Not the sectarian Syrian Islam, which a lot of people are dying over there, unfortunately. I'm talking about the classical Islam that is based on social justice, that is based on the original sources, and those original sources include the Kitab, the Sunnah, and the Ijma of the scholars. And those scholars are included in that are the Mushtahid Imams, meaning the four Imams: Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, um, Imam Abu Hanifa, and Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal. May Allah be pleased with them all. Now, um, it's just pretty dumb to me that Muslims are getting involved in politics in America, knowing that they're going to be compromised, knowing that their support, basically, their support is not going to come from um, Muslims like that. Okay, it makes no sense to me. And with this being said, it then makes people like say, "Oh, they're trying to take over. Oh, they're trying to introduce this, that, and the fourth." And really, the only way, the only way that like Islamic law can be introduced into a land, right, is if the Muslim is already powerful, like already established, already has its already like made its stamp, basically. You know what I mean? And so when these Muslims try to play the game and they're not coming from a position of power, it's very stupid, okay? It's very dumb, in my opinion. So I just don't get why they get involved in these politics, okay? Getting involved in liberalism, getting involved in like this kind of thing. And it's like, bro, these people are not going to accept you no matter what. That's the thing. Okay, when you look at look, let's look at the parallels in history, okay? Let's look at the parallels. Most of the time, all right, when you look at wars, most of the wars that Muslims fought were defensively minded wars, or if they were offensively minded, it was because they knew eventually that they were going to be next, like when it comes to the Roman Empire or something like that. You know what I mean? They knew that, okay, we may be in danger, so we better act right now before they act. Okay? When you look at the opposite side of things, most of the wars that America or the collective West has fought were basically just wars based off of some kind of interest. When you look at the war in Iraq, okay, we know what that was hitting for. We even have pictures of them having gold. Okay, you see soldiers with gold. Um, when you look at the war with, when you look at the war, when you look at the aftermath of the war, George Bush, I believe, started an oil company worth some millions of dollars. I think it's in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. They said they were fighting a war on terror, right? But none of the hijackers were from Iraq or anything like that. They said Saddam Hussein had chemical weapons. We know that that was a lie. Okay. They brought inspectors, they did everything, they still attacked the man anyway. When you look at the war in Afghanistan, right, they said they were fighting terrorism again. But the funny thing I find funny about that whole situation is that Afghanistan said they would give Osama bin Laden up before the war commenced. They even said, "Yo, we'll give him up. We'll basically, you know what I mean? We'll we'll give him to you." America still attacked. They still invaded, even though they said, "Okay, we'll give you bin Laden. You want him? Fine, we'll give it to him." We find out that when that war happened, Afghanistan was sitting on billions upon billions of dollars of natural resources, and Unfortunately, it was also sitting on opium, which ironically, the production of opium actually increased when the Americans came to Afghanistan. Okay, we fast forward to Libya. When we look at the Libyan situation, unfortunately, that was a joint effort. That was Britain and America. I remember Tony Blair's, cowardly words. We must not tolerate this regime harming its people. Meanwhile, NATO is carpet bombing innocent people in Libya. Meanwhile, we find out that, with Gaddafi, look at the emails, we see that, this guy, may Allah have mercy on him, was trying to make all of Africa basically be like the quality of living of his country. A lot of people don't know this, but under Gaddafi, Libya had a higher standard of living than Switzerland. And it was very easy to do. And that's largely due to the fact that Libya is mostly desert, number one. But number two, Libya is not really that populated like that. But, the blueprint that Gaddafi had could be followed by all other African countries, just maybe altered a little bit. So we see America, they attack him. They arm Islamic extremists, by the way. We saw what they did to him. And then we saw what those Islamic extremists did to the Black Libyans, and my heart goes out to the Black Libyans who were, Gaddafi loyalists, and very rightly so, because Gaddafi himself basically was for, Black Africans, Now, we saw how that ended, and we see how Libya it is right now. As a matter of fact, with Libya, what essentially happened is Libya is not Libya anymore. You don't even have a central government in Libya right now. You have, I think it's Misrati, you have Tripoli, and then you have Fezzan. Fezzan is Fezzan, like, these places are not even connected. Like, they don't have a centralized government anymore in Libya, is what I'm trying to say. We saw that. We saw what happened. We fast forward the war in Syria. Assad is harming his citizens, this, that, and the fourth. There's video of America actually stealing oil. There's videos of America actually arming, and Israel too. Let's not leave them out. There's videos of America and Israel arming Islamic hardliners, and the same Islamic hardliners who control the government today. Okay. So what I'm trying to get at is that, all the wars that America or the West are involved in are usually not wars of defense. Okay. They're usually wars of provocation. Okay. They're usually wars in which they start for no reason at all, except for they want something there, but they try to cloud it by saying, oh, this, they're doing this to these people. They're doing that to these people. Another example of that is China. Okay, China, I know, and at one time I was ignorant of this, and I'll admit I was very ignorant of this. The uniform language in China is, of course, Mandarin Chinese. That's the uniform language. However, I really didn't know that there were many different ethnic groups in China. You have Huns, I think. You have various ethnic groups. I think you have Hans as well. You have different people, right? So when I heard of these Uyghurs, when I heard of the Uyghurs, it was very odd to me that America cared about Muslims. I'm like, wait a minute, you're concerned with Muslims, but you've been at war with Muslims for like damn near 40 years now, or even more than that. All of a sudden, you're concerned with Chinese, or you're concerned with Muslims in China. And I didn't know that there were different groups of Muslims in China. It wasn't just the Uyghurs. You had different other ethnic groups that were, I think, Muslim. Now, what my teacher, Hafiz of Allah, informed me of, because he used to live in China as well, he used to live there. He informed me that the Uyghur group had CIA assistance to cause trouble in China, to, you know, because they said, we want Turkestan. They're like, oh, we want Turkestan. And the thing that's crazy about China is you have autonomous communities in China, and Uyghur, the Xinjiang, yes, I think that's where the Uyghurs are. The Xinjiang province was one of the it was one of the autonomous communities where Uyghur language was still preserved. Uyghur, I think the banknotes have Uyghur on it and things like that. So they had their own thing going on, and the Chinese government that was helping that thing going on. However, if you listen to the American perspective, you would think that these Uyghurs are going through something. You would think that these Uyghurs are being oppressed. They're being put in concentration camps, and we're not hearing the whole story. We're not hearing that, an element of Uyghurs are hardline fundamentalists. That's why if you look in Syria, a lot of those guys that are causing trouble right now, a lot of them are Uyghurs because they bought into extremist doctrine. Okay, that's the thing when we look at the it's like a circle. It's like a vicious cycle. Okay, it's a vicious cycle. So basically, what you have is I'm trying to think, how can I form this cycle? Okay, you have Saudi Arabia and America who are in cahoots. Arabia and America, you know, Saudi Arabia has a lot of human rights violations, by the way. But because, they're investing in America, because the petrol dollar is flowing, you have, by the United States permission, that Saudi can export this kind of hardline doctrine. And as an effect of this hardline doctrine, it creates the quote unquote Islamophobia. That then creates, I guess you can say, justification for America to do certain things, justification for there to be like an anti-Muslim ban, this, that, and the fourth, and what have you, right? So the thing is that's why it baffles me when guys like when women like Ilhan Omar get involved in these politics. You have that one guy from India, I think he's getting involved in some in New York or something like that, some kind of craziness, or I don't even know. And then you have this new guy in Somalia or in Minnesota of Somalia origin, and he's getting involved in these kind of things as well. And to me, it's a full circus. It's really a full circus. So without further ado, I want to do some commentary on a couple of these videos. Hold on. Yeah, I want to do some commentary. Give me a second. Yeah, I want to do some commentary. Yeah, let's go. Okay, let's see. Okay. Let's start with the Indian in America, in New York. And then I'll move to the Minnesota guy.
We got to talk about the fact that New York is becoming a communist Bolshevik town. It's incredible.
So again, the same talking points, the same fear-mongering talking points of communism, of Bolshevism, and it's coming from the same group of people. Okay, it's coming from the exact same group of people, which. Like, it's like, bro, it's just the same shit over and over and over again with these people, bro. Like, I listen. The only thing that make them smart is the fact that they control finance. That's the only thing. If they didn't control finance, they would be dumb as doorknobs. Okay. Other than that, they're very idiotic. Okay. I'm just gonna straight out say it. All right, it's just unfortunate that they have an upper hand in that. But let another group of people have the upper hand in that, and they would probably have more common sense than these guys. But again, same talking points, and let's continue.
I'm sorry, I've lived in New York State for 50 years, and only recently moved to Connecticut and New York City for 17. I can't believe they've done this. How did we go from Giuliani, Bloomberg, crossover de Blasio and Adams to a socialist who now is very likely to win because anybody who gets the Democratic nomination wins? Now, it's true, some people will organize against him. Some New York business leaders are very scared. Some Jews in New York are very scared that this guy who defended globalized the Intifada recently on a podcast at the Dispatch is their next likely mayor. So they could potentially organize now in a way they didn't before the primary to stop.
The dumb thing about it is they don't realize who this guy is being funded by. Okay, that's the dumb thing about it. And you heard how, I don't know if you caught it, but you heard how he was like, when she mentioned the J word, how he was like, yeah, definitely. Because he himself is a cuck as well. I'm at this point, I know it sounds crazy, but at this point, I believe all American politicians are cucks to that piece of shit ass place that's causing so much trouble in the Middle East at this point. And I'm not going to say the name because they'll cancel me. They already shadow banned my Instagram account for even mentioning the name.
Stop him. But if you had to put money on it, you'd have to put it on this guy becoming the next mayor. What does this say about New York and our country?
Well, a lot. And I'm going to push the envelope a little bit, Megan. So you have to give me, and you can push back at any time. So I think
you're in trouble. I saw you're in trouble with Jessica Tarlov of Fox News on the internet.
Well, yeah, I'm going to say it here on air because I don't hide from my opinions. But yes, and you can push back and disagree, and I'll give all the proper caveats, which of course I believe in. But yes, the socialism part is very important. I mean, he has like some of the dumbest ideas imaginable, which we're going to have city-run grocery stores. Yeah, that works really well in Cuba. Bring back bread lines, right, Mom?
So I've been to Cuba. All right, I've been to Cuba before, and I'm going to say one thing about that. If your country is blockaded, then you're not in a position to say it's a dumb idea. And as far as I'm concerned, there are some private business. There is a private sector in Cuba. So again, strike number one.
Donnie 2025. And obviously he wants to tax the rich. He wants to take more money away from people. All that's super bad. He wants to defund the police. He's on the record saying defund the police. He wants to send social workers instead of cops. But like, we need to also understand, and we have to be very delicate how we talk about this. And I'll give all the proper caveats, right? Not every Muslim is bad. A lot of Muslims are really decent and good people. My primary care doctor is actually Muslim. I've endorsed someone running for office.
So this is the thing. They always do this to hide what their intentions are. They'll say, like, for example, this is their playbook. They'll say, and they did it during 9/11, by the way. They'll say that the certain group of people that they don't like is not bad. However, they're still like against that group of people. They're still against what that group of people stand for. At least the real group of people who are standing on business, at least the ones who are standing on the Kitab, the Sunnah, and the Ijma, they're against those. The ones who want to be like them, of course, they're not against. And this Mamdani guy, he wants to be like them. Don't let it fool you. He wants to be like them. So again, it's just disingenuous, but let's listen to him. I can't actually stand listening to this guy, by the way. I mean, anytime I see his face, I just want to punch him in the face.
Office as a Muslim, Zuhdi Jasser here in Arizona. So we all know individually good Muslims, but we also must kind of take pause and say, wait a second. The two financial power centers of the West are obviously London and New York. And are we really going to have two Muslim mayors of the major financial power centers of the West? Like, let's just take a pause and take a step back and like, what does that say and what does that mean? And people say, well, it's irrelevant that he's Muslim. Well, you said it best. He wants to globalize the intifada. And by the way, that just means globalized terrorism. He is.
Again, do I support Islam cover to cover overall? This is what I support, okay? I'm going to tell you what I support. I support Islam based on the orthodox sources, Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, okay? So if, for example, if a Muslim is in a non-Muslim country, right? They have no room to like try to make that country into a Muslim country. Okay. You have, for example, no standing army. You have no, you probably don't have even good enough scholars to guide you through what that would be like. So you should not even be entertaining this. Okay. A Muslim getting involved in Western politics is very stupid to me, okay? It's very asinine. What you should be doing, okay? And this is my opinion. We have Muslim majority countries, right? Throughout Asia, throughout Africa, and through the Middle East, right? Those countries, including my home country, right, should be coming together to be using the resources to build a country or to build a power structure. Not going to not going to other countries to try to assimilate and try to get involved into politics, because it's like, if you call this doing dawah, you're not doing dawah, bro. You're just like pretty much setting things back. You're not doing Muslims no favor by getting involved in Western politics. Okay, you're not doing no Muslims no favor. Okay, listen. Even in my region in Africa, in the Sahel, we have minerals, we have oil, we have fertile land, we have all of that. We should be like putting our heads together and saying, okay, how can we make this area green? How can we produce things over here? How can we make this community conducive to what we want? That's what should be going on. That's my personal opinion. So it's not about the backlash, because believe it or not, a lot of these Muslims, like a lot of these like Muslims in the West, are on board with these people getting involved in politics and shit like that. It's not really about the backlash. It's about, fundamentally speaking, it just doesn't mesh. Okay, for example, the Muslim man is allowed to marry 4 women, provided that he has the means to take care of 4 women. The Western man, on the other hand, is, pushing, oh, we have to be, gender neutral. We have to be like accepting of the fact that, this man who identifies as a woman is a woman, and things like that. Right. So this is what I'm saying. Okay. It's just a clash. Let's take another example. Let's just take the example of like being responsible sexually, getting married, raising a family, having permission, to, be with your wife and stuff like that. Or if you have more than one wife, you be with them, versus it says that Islam says, but they don't want the help though, brother. That's what you have to understand. They don't want the help. Okay, according to them, right? According to them, they're so far ahead of us that they're so far ahead of us that we're the backwards ones. We're the ones fighting handicap. We're the ones at a handicap. So they don't want the help. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There's a verse in the Quran, even. I'll read that verse real quick. Hold on. I'll read the verse in the Quran. Hold on. Just I'll read a part of the verse. Give me a minute. Hold on. So, hold on. Let me see. Give me a minute. Okay. So there's one verse in Surah Al-Baqarah. Okay. I'll read it real quick. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. It says, Walayna takta al-ladina utul kitab bikulli ayati ma bi'u kiblataka wa ma anta bi tabihi kiblatahum. And so what that basically means is that it says, even if you were to bring every proof to the people of the book, meaning Jews or Christians, they will not accept your direction of prayer. And that verse could basically be determine that they're not going to accept what you have. Okay. If you, for example, I'll give a perfect example. If you say, nah, man, I don't drink, okay, they're gonna be like, what's wrong with you, bro? If you say, nah, man, I'm not into smoking or anything, they're gonna be like, what's wrong with you, man? If you say, nah, man, I'm not into girls who are shaking their ass and showing themselves online all day, what's wrong with you, man? Like, you're trying to oppress women? And so God says, try to bring forth the message of the Prophet Muhammad, but you have to understand something. You have to understand something about that, though. The Prophet Muhammad, alayhi salatu salam, right? When the Prophet Muhammad, alayhi salatu salam, was at the beginning stages of Islam, he was in a place of, I guess you can say, he was in a place of building. He was in a building stage. So he brought people over. He brought people over with peace, a good example, why wisdom and things like that. But when Islam got more powerful, there were certain things he didn't tolerate. Okay. So that's what I'm saying, is that trying to bring people over in the West who have historically not liked Muslims, and we see that by who they go to war with, is not a good thing. And it's a waste of time. Okay? Okay, so the Prophet Muhammad, alayhi salatu salam, so I'll read it from a book I have, Qadi Yad. And, okay. And maybe I shouldn't read this, but I'm just showing you, what time it was, okay? With the Prophet Muhammad, Let me see. Give me a second. Hold on. Give me a minute. I want to read a section. It's not a long section, basically. It's not long. It's not long. Let me see. Hold on. I need to find it. Give me 1 second. I'm looking for the chapter. But what I'm saying is that you'll find that at the beginning of Islam, the Prophet the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, there were certain things he did, but then when Islam became powerful, there were other things that he did that many people were like, oh wow. So this is what I'm saying. At times he would be patient with groups of people, right? But then there were other times where he wasn't so patient with groups of people. I'll give an example because I can't find it. No, not capturing slaves. I'll give you an example. So even we know the Yahud. Yes, this is the example I want to give. We know the Yahud was always like bothering the Prophet. We all know that. I think there were only like maybe 3 people from the Yahud who converted to Islam at the Prophet alayhi salatu salam's time. Now, the thing is that you don't have to apologize, but yes, there were times where the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, he was patient with Yahud, okay? But there were other times where he said, nope, that's it. One example is when the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, when the Yahud got with not only the Meccan polytheists, but they got with the Christians too. And they were like, yeah, let's take them out. But so the Yahuds teamed with the polytheists and the Christians to take out the Prophet. So what did he do to them? Hasta la vista. Okay. So what I'm saying, the reason why I'm saying that is, yes, at the beginning of his affair, maybe he was more lenient, more patient, and things like that. But as the affair got more powerful, that's when he had to, do certain things that they criticize him about. It's not only that. It's the fact that they were trying to conspire to eliminate him with not only the polytheists of Mecca, but also Christians as well. And what do we see today? So this is my reason why. This is my reason why I find it stupid that Muslims get involved in Western politics. Because here's the thing. When you look at the groups of people who are doing the worst to Muslims, it's Yahuds, right? And it's unfortunately, there's 3 groups of people: Yahuds, Christians, but you also have polytheists, and those are the Indians, basically. You see how these Indians will do everything in their power to help anything that's against Islam, including things that are happening in their own country. So this is why I think it's dumb for Muslims to get involved into American politics or Western politics in general. Because again, these people will never accept you. These people, they don't learn. That's another thing. You can't stop. The thing is, you're not going to stop someone who's basically has a conviction in their faith. We're learning that with the whole Palestine situation right now. We're learning that with Yemen, okay? No, you don't have to necessarily be involved in West society. No, I disagree. I disagree with that, and I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why I disagree with that. Okay, let's take the middle. Let's take the Muslim countries. Let's take the Maghreb. Okay, let's take the Maghreb, and when I say Maghreb, I mean North Africa. Let's take the Middle East. Okay, the army of Algeria alone, which is the second biggest army in Africa, would be able to liberate Palestine today if it wanted to. It would be able to go over to Palestine. It would be liberated today. You know, that's the thing. In the snap of a finger, that thing is liberated. Now, yes, there would be consequences, but then that means that you have to have another Muslim country that has that Algeria's back, which is lacking right now. So I don't think we need to be involved in Western politics for Islam to be good in our own countries. I don't believe that, because the thing is, in our countries, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he blessed us and he cursed us with these things. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed Algeria with a lot of minerals. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed Algeria with oil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed other countries with oil and things like that. I think, like, honestly, with all the Muslim countries, they can get together and hold it down, but they choose not to. You know, they choose to be, I guess you can say, Western puppets. But here is another example of why, it makes no sense to get involved in politics in the West. Hold on, let me see. Okay, here we go. Okay. Let's look at something a little bit more okay. Okay, let's just look at this. Let's just look at this one. I don't want to look at a commentator or a commentator's thing.
Всем добрый вечер. Хочу поделиться своей историей и выразить огромную благодарность вашей компании.
The Mamdani effect has spread across the country and landed in Minneapolis. Omar Fateh, a Muslim man with Somalian heritage, is a Democrat mayoral candidate for the city. And like his New York counterpart, he's pushing some very controversial ideas that are putting blue-blooded
Sorry, it's kind of like
Americans offside.
To make an affordable Minneapolis that works for everyone, we need a mayor that works as hard as you do. I'm ready to work hard to 1. Build a Minneapolis that working people can afford to call home. 2. Protect our city from a hostile White House. And 3. Diversify our...
So you see how ass backwards that is, right? Protect our city from a White House. Like, how are you going to protect the city from a White House that's a part of a country which the capital of the capital is where the White House is? Like, you see now, do you see what I'm saying? You hear how asinine that sounds? Why not go fix your? Why not turn Somalia into Minneapolis then? Or why not put your ideas in Somalia instead of trying to put it into somewhere where they're not going to accept you? You hear how ass backwards this is with these Muslims? That's one of the reasons why I had to leave America, because, bro, I had it up to there with the Muslims there. It wasn't only the degenerate culture. It wasn't only the degenerate, crazy ass backward culture that made me leave, but it was like Muslims like this, man. The same Muslims who voted for Trump, man, thinking that he was going to help them. That's another reason why I had to get out of here. There, you know, that's the thing. Now let's listen to what Mr. Omar has to say.
Our city's public safety response by increasing the minimum wage to $20 by 2028 and passing rent stabilization to stop price gouging and incentivizing new construction, we can protect workers.
Fateh, much like Mamdani, is also exploiting the sentiment of his Democratic base by running on a very vocal anti-Trump ticket.
Protecting all of our communities from Donald Trump means not letting MPD interact with ICE, whether it's for an immigration raid or not. Our residents deserve a mayor that will stand up to Donald Trump and say, no, not in our community.
He has also made his allegiances to the Somalian community.
So you see, again, I would understand if bro had, like, let's just say bro had the power of a country behind him. Then I would understand that. Like, let's say bro had Vladimir Putin behind him. Then I would understand. That would be like, yeah, go ahead. You have some action. You have Mr. Vladimir Putin behind you. You have Mr. Vladimir Putin who, you know, will help you, will possibly, you know, give you what's needed to succeed. But he has none of that. Okay? That's what I'm saying. You have to be in a position of power in order to make a power play that's going to help you. And I find that if you're in a Muslim country and you are Muslim, you're in a better position of power than if you're in a non-Muslim country. That's all I'm saying. But let's continue.
Very clear, using politics to push through his community's agenda.
Investing in increasing affordable housing and not gentrifying our neighborhoods. These are all things that are causing harm to our community because of this idea that there isn't money, when in reality, we do have this money to spend on this. It's just that we're choosing not to. It's not a value of ours. So right now, we're blessed to have 3 Somali elected officials at the Capitol. Me, Sister Hodan Hassan, who's in the State House, and Brother Mahmoud Noor. And we work very closely together. And we carry each other's bills. So the way it works is, if there's a bill in the House, it needs an identical bill to be carried in the Senate for it to be negotiated and to pass in the committees, and then go on for the floor session, and then go on to the governor's signature. So we're able to pass our bills back and forth that'll help benefit our communities.
Online commentators have blasted the candidate, with this person saying, Omar Fateh is a socialist running to be the mayor of Minneapolis. He said his goal is to infiltrate the government to enrich the Somalis. And this person agreed, saying Minneapolis may get its own Zoran Mamdani. It's spreading. Omar Fateh is running for mayor to freeze the rent, raise the minimum wage by $4 over a couple of years, why not 100, Trump-proof the city, and diversify public safety response, i.e. defund the police. You gotta be kidding me. He's basically cloning Zoran's platform, has to be defeated. Fateh's push for politics comes after Zoran Mamdani created waves in New York City, being elected as the Democrat nominee for mayor of the city. Former Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy has warned that this trend signals a further shift to the left for the Democrats.
Your thoughts on what's going on?
This means much more, because this is a very big race. I mean, this has ramifications beyond New York. And the Democrats are in a transition period. Which direction do they go? And it tells you 2 things in this race, right? Cuomo's in this race. Everybody assumes he's going to win. Mamdani enters and he has a 1%. He destroys Cuomo. He comes out stronger than anybody thinks. So the party is moving towards a socialist wing, AOC and others. But it's another telling story for the Democratic Party. It means they're leaderless, because it means Schumer and Hakeem are not the leaders. They're trying to find somebody new.
Commentator Jack Pozo echoed these sentiments at the Turning Point conference, saying these would-be politicians are not American.
And this idea that I think we've been laboring with, this experiment that we've tried in mass immigration, has been a mass failure. It has been a failure. And this idea that if you just hand someone a piece of paper, that makes them American, guess what? It's failed. It's wrong. It's not true. And as I stand here before you today, I'll ask you a question. Does Kami Mamdani, does Zohran Mamdani seem like an American? No, no.
So I'm gonna tell you what the problem is. Okay? I'm gonna tell you what the problem is. The fact that Muslims are adopting foreign ideologies when Islam already saw these things. Like, for example, there is no socialism. Okay. Islam has, I guess you can say, social welfare. Yes, I am Muslim, alhamdulillah. Yes, alhamdulillah. Born Muslim, actually studied Islam in my rural village in Africa, studied Maliki fiqh, studied Aqidah, studied Arabic grammar in Sarf and things like that. Alhamdulillah. But that's for another time in another day. But what I was saying is that Islam in its very fabric already has social welfare. Okay? Islam already has things that are in place for the solutions. So, like, for example, if you when it comes to, let's just say, okay, let's say the issue of theft. Say, like, a person, like, I'm not by any means like trashing these people. I love these people. I love these people so much for their resilience and for their fact that they're still going. I put them with the Badr. I rate their level with the Badr 313, the 313 men of Badr. I put them up there. But when it comes to like a Palestinian would be within his rights to steal food because of the simple fact that, number one, the prices are too high to buy food for them to afford. And number two, there's a food blockade. They would be in their rights to steal. Okay? However, this is where Islam would check the leadership for them having to steal. You would have to check the leadership and be like, okay, so why are these people stealing? What's the problem in what is going on in your country that these people have to steal for? Why are you doing this? So the leader would be checked. Now, let's just say, for example, a guy, he doesn't need to steal, but he steals. Like, let's just say, like how in America, how you see, unfortunately, you see guys who, they boost stores, they steal all this merchandise in stores and stuff. Sometimes they break windows and break glass. Then that's when you would apply the punishment to these guys, because they're not doing it to survive. They're doing it to, like, basically cause havoc and things like that. That's when the punishment would be applied to those guys. But again, Islam covers the social justice aspect. Islam takes care of the poor in true Islam, in true Islam. So that's another issue I have, is that these Western Muslims, they adopt ideologies that are not even in, like, that are contrary to Islam. You know, that's my problem. Okay, that's my issue. Um, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. That's the problem. That's the issue I have. Because you can, for example, you can explain up and down. You can explain up and down to someone that um, this means this means that, and still, if that person is just set on hating you, they're just going to hate you. That's just it. They're just going to hate you. You can't do anything about it. Okay. So this is what I'm saying. I'm saying this because no, I'm just being real. No liberal or leftist or right wing, Democrat, Republican, conservative, whatever, will accept you. This is what I'm trying to get at. Okay. No, I hate to say it, but no Muslim who has been liberalized and maybe says, oh yeah, you're allowed to do LGBT, is going to accept you. Okay. That's just what I'm saying. Let's look at, for example, what I'm trying to think of a state. Let me think. Because we have many examples in the Islamic world. Let me think. Let me see. Okay, let's look at Sultan Baybars. I don't know if you heard of Sultan Baybars, but I'm just giving this example. The only reason I'm showing this is just giving this example of like what focusing on Muslim lands look like versus focusing on non-Muslim lands look like. I'm just giving you the example. Okay, let's look at Sultan Baybars.
April 15th, 1277. Baybars stood on a slope overlooking the plain of Elbistan. The ground, as far as the eye could see, was littered with the bodies of thousands of dead Mongols. The Battle of Elbistan was over, and once again Baybars and his mighty Mamluk army were victorious.
So we know, for example, the Mongols, some of them did become Muslim. And me personally, you know, I know he did a lot of damage against Muslims, but I respect Chinggis Khan. But at the same time, Chinggis Khan had Muslims in his entourage and his envoys as well. But that's not to, you know, say that, you know, he's just like my hero. No, that's not saying that. But you know, the Mongols, you can compare like what's going on in Palestine. You can compare that to kind of like what the Mongols are, the Mongols are, what the Mongols did to the Muslims a while back. You can compare that to that. What's going on in Gaza, in Palestine, is equivalent to what, yes, the Mongols did. Give me 1 minute. Give me 1 second. Okay, so
Invasion of Mongol-held Anatolia was going as planned. He had annihilated the main Mongol army in the region, and his march on the Seljuk capital, Kayseri, Caesarea, was now unopposed. This was another triumph to add to the many others that had accumulated throughout the career of this warrior sultan. He was the hero of Ain Jalut. He defeated all Mongol attacks on his domains. He conquered much of the Crusader states and reduced them to insignificance, and launched an offensive campaign into the Mongol-occupied region of the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum. Baybars had plans for the future, but these never materialized because he would be dead months after his victory at Elbistan. Baybars I is one of the most famous and illustrious among the rulers of the Mamluk Sultanate. However, Baybars was not born into royalty. He was enslaved at a young age and sold to the Ayyubid rulers of Syria and Egypt. Torn away from his home and family, he had to strive to survive in a foreign land. He distinguished himself as a soldier in the service of his masters and ascended the ranks of the Ayyubid military. He played a major role in the overthrow of the last Ayyubid Sultan in 1250 and seized the throne from another Mamluk Sultan a decade later and reigned for 17 years. This is his story. And we bring this to you alongside a great many other stories, the stories of those who lived in Egypt thousands of years earlier, from our sponsor Magellan TV, the hidden gem of documentary streaming service of tyrant nobles working slaves to death in a constant barrage of misery and evil. To watch the hidden history of Egypt empires. Baybars, they were renowned for their and Polovtsi by the Russians were a Baybars was born in the Kipchak steppe between 1220 and 1229 into one of the Kipchak tribes inhabiting this region. The Kipchaks, referred to as Cumans in Europe, and Polovtsi by the Russians, were a confederation of pagan nomadic Turkic tribes that inhabited the steppes of southern Russia and Ukraine. They were renowned for their military prowess and skills, and served as mercenaries or slave soldiers in the armies of both Muslim and Christian kingdoms and empires. Baybars' tribe fled westward in the wake of the Mongol invasions of the 1220s and 1230s, and sought refuge in the Crimean Peninsula, which was then controlled by a Turkmen tribal chief, Anas Khan. Feeling secure, the refugees let their guard down, only to be treacherously attacked by Anas Khan. Many of them were killed and enslaved. Baybars was among the young captives who were transported by way of Sivas in Anatolia to the slave markets of Ayyubid Syria. Little is known about the details of Baybars' journey to the Middle East, his education, and his training. However, one can reconstruct the process based on the descriptions given in the many chronicles, biographical dictionaries, and martial arts manuals that survive from the Mamluk period. Mamluks were treated much differently than other slaves. These boys were destined to become elite soldiers, officers, governors, and members of the ruler's court. They established strong relationships with their patrons and underwent some formal education and training in the martial and equestrian arts. The slaves were freed at the end of their training and enrolled in the Sultan's army or the retinue of an emir as professional full-time soldiers and were paid from the treasury. These Mamluk soldiers were elite heavy cavalrymen who fought both as shock cavalry and mounted archers. They excelled at close combat using the lance and other melee weapons such as swords, maces, and axes, and could deal death from a distance firing their composite bows from horseback, making them some of the most versatile warriors of the Middle Ages. This versatility allowed them to successfully fight nomadic armies composed primarily of mounted archers, such as those fielded by the Mongols, and to fight on equal terms with heavier foes, such as the Frankish knights of the Crusader states, and the heavy cavalrymen fielded by the Kingdom of Georgia and the Armenian Kingdom of Cilicia. The sources do not tell us what Baybars looked like as a youth, but later descriptions state that he was tall, swarthy, had a powerful voice, and blue eyes, one of which had a tiny white spot. He was first sold to someone by the name of Imad al-Din al-Sa'i for the low price of 800 dirhams. He was promptly returned to the...
No, I want to stop for a little bit on that. So, what I'm saying is that, Sultan Baybars, rahimahullah, he was sold to the Muslim lands, yes. But his origin was very, very humble. And but it still shows that, like, because he was in the service of Islam, he was raised. He was Allah elevated him in rank and things like that because of his service to Islam. So if we compare Sultan Baybars to these like Muslim politicians and rank it like these Muslim politicians in the West, I'm going to be real. And I know it's going to sound very like hateful and things like that, but Allah does what he pleases, but I don't think Allah will raise their rank. I don't think Allah will raise their rank like a Sultan Baybars, rahimahullah. Well, let's continue.
To the merchant due to the white spot in his eye. Baybars was then taken to Hama, where the local ruler, Al-Malik al-Mansur Muhammad, almost purchased him. However, his mother convinced him not to buy Baybars because there was something evil in his eye. He was eventually purchased by an emir, Ala al-Din Aidakin al-Salihi al-Bunduktar, an officer in the army of Al-Salih Ayyub, the future Sultan of Egypt. Aidakin, who was already on shaky terms with his overlord, incurred al-Salih's anger when he married another emir's concubine. The Sultan banished him and confiscated his property, including his Mamluks. This is how Baybars came to pass into the service of Al-Salih Ayyub. He would eventually join his elite regiment, the Bariya. Baybars was able to quickly distinguish himself through his prowess, intelligence, and leadership qualities. He was promoted and rewarded by his master until he was one of the leading officers in the regiment. In 1239, Al-Salih Ayyub made a bid for the Egyptian throne after the death of his father, Al-Kamil. He occupied Damascus and invaded Egypt. His army was reportedly 6,000 strong and composed of tribesmen and mercenaries, mostly Turkmens, Kurds, and Khwarezmians, in addition to Al-Salih's guard of Mamluks. Most of his troops deserted him, leaving him with loyal Mamluks. He was imprisoned by his cousin in Kerak for 6 months. During his incarceration, a slave, also named Baybars, often conflated with the future sultan, shared his cell, along with his favorite concubine, Shajar al-Dur, also a Kipchak Turk. Al-Salih's other Mamluks remained waiting outside Kerak, either for their master's release or the opportunity to rescue him. Al-Salih was released from prison in 1240 and seized the sultanate. Based on his experiences, he started purchasing Mamluks in large numbers and based his power on these loyal and elite soldiers. He created several regiments, of which the Bariya and the Jamdariya were the most powerful and elite. As an officer of the Bariya regiment, Baybars and his comrades were in close association with their patron, and many of them held some of the most important positions at the royal court. Baybars was also a veteran of many battles prior to his rise to the throne. He may have been at the Battle of Gaza or La Forbi in 1244, where Al-Salih Ayyub and his Mamluks and Khwarezmian allies inflicted a crushing defeat on the allied army of the Crusader states and the Ayyubids of Syria.
So I want to bring up an important point. This is a very important point. You see that the Muslims were focused on liberation of Muslims' lands. They weren't focused on quote unquote assimilating into non-Muslim lands, which unfortunately I believe, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I believe that the majority of Muslims today are more concerned with assimilating and spreading dawah in non-Muslim places versus liberating Muslim places. Liberating our lands from, let's just say, colonialism, let's just say from not being able to do what we really need to do when it comes to the issues of our brothers in, Palestine, our brothers in Yemen. You know what I'm saying? That's my opinion. And many people will probably crucify me for that opinion, but yeah, that's just what I believe. I believe that more Muslims are concerned with not freeing Muslim lands, but fleeing Muslim lands to assimilate. That's just my opinion. But let's continue with Baybars.
Al-Salih then defeated the Khwarezmians, who had rebelled against him in 1246 in a battle near Homs. The sources do not explicitly mention if Baybars was there. It was at the Battle of Mansoura in 1250 that Baybars really distinguished himself. Baybars was effectively in command of the Bariya during this battle. The Sultan had died from medical complications during the campaign. The Bariya regiment's commander, Faris al-Din Aktay, was dispatched to Hisn Kaifa to bring back al-Salih's heir, Turan Shah. Initially, it seemed as though the Battle of Mansoura would be a Crusader victory. Robert of Artois and a contingent of knights forded the Ashmam Canal at a lightly guarded point with the help of a Bedouin guide. He launched a surprise attack on the Egyptian military camp, which was about 2 to 3 miles away from Mansoura, forcing most of the forces that were stationed there to withdraw and killing Fakhr al-Din, the commander of the army. The Crusaders then proceeded to enter Mansoura through gates that had been left open. Baybars and the Bariya rallied the other retreating units and restored order and stationed them at various points in the city. Robert and his men advanced deep into Mansoura, all the while suffering attacks from the alleys and the rooftops. When they got to the palace, they were met by the Bariya, arrayed in battle formation. The heavily armored Mamluks were more than a match for the attacking Crusaders. Robert of Artois died in the fighting, along with hundreds of knights. Shortly after the debacle at Mansoura, Louis IX and the remainder of his army attempted to withdraw to Damietta. About 2 months after the battle, the Crusaders suffered another devastating defeat at the Battle of Farisker on April 6th. By this time, Turan Shah had arrived to take command of the Egyptian army. The Crusader army was destroyed. Those soldiers and knights who were not killed were taken prisoner, along with the king. Turan Shah did not reign long. He despised the Bariya for their power and influence in Egypt, and sought to replace them with his own Mamluks and supporters. He even threatened to execute their leaders and to confiscate their property and wealth. The Bariya did not wait and struck preemptively. They attacked him in his camp, and a Mamluk injured the Sultan's hand with his sword. Turan Shah fled to a wooden tower near the Nile. The Mamluks set fire to the tower, forcing him out. Turan Shah attempted to make a run for the river, but was wounded by a spear thrust to the ribs. He made it to the water, but his pursuers were close behind and fired arrows at him from the riverbank.
Now, I'm not condoning this. I'm not condoning like these coups that Sultan Baybars and the Mamluks did. I'm not going to condone that at all. I'm not going to condone that. But what I'm saying is that when it was crunch, my point is when it was crunch time, Sultan Baybars was not worried about, okay, but how am I going to assimilate into let's just say France? How am I going to assimilate into Italy? How am I going to assimilate or do dawah into these places? He was more worried about how am I going to protect the Muslim lands, which, a majority of, Western Muslims are not concerned with.
Some accounts state it was Baybars himself who waded into the river to deal the killing blow to the hapless monarch as he begged for his life. Turan Shah's assassination ushered in a decade of chaos in Egypt. Initially, the Bariya raised Shaja al-Dur as the Sultana. However, a female on the throne of Egypt did not sit well with the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad. Izz al-Din Aibak, an officer of middling rank, was raised to the position of Atabak and Sultan, only to be replaced 5 days later by Al-Ashraf Musa, a 6-year-old scion of the House of Ayyub. Al-Ashraf was the titular Sultan of Egypt until 1254, with Aibak as the regent and true power behind the throne. During this time, Baybars supported his commanding officer Aktay in furthering his interests and those of his fellow Bariya. In 1250, shortly after the victory at Mansoura, the Bedouin tribes of Upper Egypt revolted. They refused to be the subjects of slaves. Baybars were sent with a force of 200 Mamluks to crush the rebellion. The underage
So again, this is a very important point too. I think we have to get past we have to get past social status and things like that, because, for example, and I'm just going to be real. Mohammed bin Salman is not fit to be a ruler. You know what I mean? But of course, he inherited that rulership because obviously he is from the royal family and what have you. But when we look at it, he's not really fit to be a leader. Okay. So, you see here, the Bedouin Arab, they had a problem with these guys are of slave origin and they want to rule over me. Hell no. But, they got dealt with, they definitely got dealt with. And so, again, this is true Islam. When the Islam looks at the abilities of a person over that person's origin and, what have you. So again, this just goes to show that we stray so far away from it. You know what I mean? Because, you look at these people voting or trying to get into Western politics, and I don't know what they think they're gonna see, because at the helm of it all, you're still gonna have the president over your whole thing. You know what I mean? Rather than having your own entity, which can be done in Muslim country. That's all I'm saying.
al-Ashraf was deposed only months after being raised to the throne. That same year, Aktay was invited to the citadel by Aybak and treacherously murdered. When their leader failed to return, the Bariya went to the citadel only to have Aktay's head flung over the wall at them. Many of the Bariya, about 700 to 800 in number, fled to Syria under the leadership of Baybars. They served the Ayyubid princes, Al-Mughith of Karak and then al-Nasir Yusuf of Damascus, as mercenaries. In 1257, Aybak was murdered by Shaja al-Dur. Having lost the support of all the Mamluk factions, she was in turn killed by a group of Aybak's concubines. Al-Mu'iz, Aybak's 15-year-old son, was raised to the throne, but it was his lieutenant, Qutuz, who held the real reins of power. In 1259, Qutuz seized the Sultanate for himself, using the need for a strong leader against the Mongol invasion as his excuse. In the meantime, Baybars had led 2 invasions of Egypt in 1257 and 1258. Despite failing both times, Baybars and his comrades distinguished themselves against superior numbers. In 1260, Baybars made his peace with Qutuz. At the Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260, Baybars led the vanguard against the Mongols. Once again, he and the Bariya distinguished themselves and were an important element that secured the defeat of the Mongol forces. Baybars and a group of emirs managed to isolate Qutuz on the return journey to Cairo and murdered him. It was once again Baybars who struck the killing blow. Baybars was proclaimed the new sultan by his followers, and the entire army followed suit. Baybars spent his entire reign, 1260 to 1277, strengthening the Mamluk army and preparing for another inevitable Mongol invasion.
So again, you see, he focuses on the state, okay? He focuses on what needs to be done. He doesn't focus on, okay, we got to go to England and spread dawah. No, he focused on what was ahead of what was in front of him at the time. And what was in front of him at the time was the Mongols and the Crusaders. So That's what I'm saying. With the Muslim of today, especially in the West, he's not focused on, like, let's just say he's not focused on I hate to say it, greater Israel. And I'm gonna be real, greater Israel is a real thing, okay? No, the Muslim of today is worried about, okay, how many converts can I win over in a place where they're not going to accept me anyway. That's what he's worried about. So that's my issue. That's my issue. That's my problem. Okay? Because you're worried about the wrong thing, you know. And so this is my issue with Muslims in Western politics. Okay? Let's say, for example, let's take another army. Okay, let's just say Egyptian army. Let's say Egyptian army did liberate Palestine, yes? After they liberate Palestine, they would just have to focus on getting stronger because they know that, like, for example, America may come in or another foreign entity will come in. Then you just focus on getting your army stronger, man. That's just my opinion. You know, this is just my opinion. A lot of people don't agree with it. Of course, they're not going to agree with it. But no, this is just my opinion. That you should be focused on you should be focused on the Muslims. You shouldn't be focused on trying to win other people over. But let's continue.
During his reign, the regular army increased significantly. The regular army of Egypt under the Ayyubids had numbered 10 to 12,000 horsemen. Baybars increased it to 30 to 40,000 professional soldiers. Baybars also recruited Turkmen, Bedouin, and Kurdish tribal auxiliaries. He also established an effective spy network that alerted him of any impending Mongol attacks. Baybars ensured the army was always in a state of readiness. He held frequent military reviews to make sure the soldiers all maintained their equipment and were combat ready. Baybars also continued the struggle with what was left of the Crusader states. He besieged and conquered Caesarea, Arsuf, Safed, Jaffa, Antioch, and the Crac de Chevalier. He weakened them so much that his successors, Calawin and his son Al-Ashraf Khalil, easily finished them off, conquering their last two major strongholds, Tripoli and Acre.
Okay, this is very important because you see that the Muslims were in a position of power. So therefore, that's when Baybars and the Mamluks increased their territory again because they were in a position of power. You see? So that's what I'm trying to get at is that you know, I'm gonna be honest, Muslims aren't really in a position of power. You know, I'm just gonna be real. I mean, when you look at Muslim states, they're compromised. I mean, and the ones who don't want to be compromised, you know, unfortunately, they're in a pretty weak state, but they're still making resistance. And I'm talking about Yemen. You know, like Yemen is pretty much in a weak state, but it's still putting up a fight. So yeah, that's what I want to say.
All throughout his campaigns, Baybars actively participated in both planning and personally leading and fighting in the battles and sieges. Baybars' last campaign took place in 1277. He invaded Anatolia, ruled by the Seljuks of Rum, who were vassals of the Mongols. At the Battle of Elbistan, he fought the main Mongol army in the region. Both armies numbered around 10 to 15,000 men. The Mongols deployed 1 Tumen, along with around 3,000 Georgian vassal troops, and some Seljuk auxiliaries. The Mongol army was crushed in the battle. The Mamluk soldiers' more accurate and longer-range archery, their heavy armor, their superior training, and their larger and stronger war horses all contributed to the outcome of the battle, in which 6 to 10,000 Mongols and Georgians were killed, as opposed to a relatively small number of Mamluks. Baybars occupied the Seljuk capital of Kayseri and had himself proclaimed Sultan, and struck coins in his name. Baybars did not live long to bask in his glory or to carry out any of his future plans. He died in Syria that same year on his return journey to Cairo. There are several speculations regarding his death. He may have consumed poisoned kumis. He may have died of a wound he sustained in battle, or he may have succumbed to an illness. At the time of his death, Baybars left a stable sultanate with a strong army that was ready for the next major Mongol invasion. He laid down the model for the organization of the army and its training, which was followed for generations after his death. Baybars' story is exemplary of the careers of many slave soldiers of the medieval and early modern Muslim world. He rose from being a refugee and slave to become a soldier, officer, and then a ruler. Most of the most successful rulers of the Mamluk Sultanate started their careers as slaves and soldiers, just like Baybars. Even though not every slave soldier became a sultan, many of them became officers, administrators, and governors. The Mamluks, even the rank and file, enjoyed a special status in society and had the opportunity to rise to wealth and power through merit at a time when climbing the social ladder was not very common among the freeborn peoples of both European Christendom and the Muslim world. More videos on the history of Islam are on the way, so make sure.
Okay, so I mean, there you have it. You have, like, for example, they weren't focused on non-Muslim lands as these people are focused on today. Okay, they weren't focused on dawah. They were focused on building a strong state at first. And so I'm not saying that Muslims en masse should leave. Like, let's just say you're in America and you just leave and, carry out these objectives. I mean, because many Muslims wouldn't want to leave en masse, But what I'm saying is, rather than get involved in American politics, Western politics, you should be trying to be involved in the Muslim lands. That's what I'm saying. You should it should get to the point that the Muslim lands are so secure that you can be a black, a white, a yellow, a red, a green, a purple Muslim, and your security will be guaranteed based off of your Islam in any Muslim country versus being a black, a yellow, a red, a blue Muslim in the West, and you trying to fit in, you trying to assimilate, you trying to get these people to accept you. That's my point. That's my point. Okay, and so I'm gonna segue a little bit. A little bit, and I'm gonna show you how, how the same people that the Muslims are trying to assimilate with are the same people who are, quietly infiltrating Islam from within. Hold on, let me see. Hold on. Okay, let me see.
There's no secret that I used to be a bad boy.
Me?
Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah. But then you see down the comment of the person, because roles are reversed.
All right, hold on. I'm just trying to find another example of like infiltration. The infiltration that takes place in the West when it comes to Islam, and it's unfortunately spreading everywhere. Spreading everywhere, but luckily, by the grace and the trust of Allah, that there are still places that, while it's Muslim and it's secular, but it's still secular. It's still, for example, it's still not infiltrated like 110%. It's not infiltrated like that. So, yeah. But let me go ahead and find the video. This may be a long video. This may be a long one to commentate. So inshallah, just kind of hang tight. It may be long. This may be a long one. But let's go ahead and use it, inshallah.
Feminism. It's never been more actively marketed in the mainstream than it is today. Feminism has come to be known as inextricably linked with the fight for gender equality in the modern world. Right from its earliest wave in the late 19th century to the fourth and fifth waves that we witness in this day and age, feminism has evolved immensely. Kicking off as a campaign for women's voting rights, it has progressed to become an ideology, a social identity, and a set of institutions fighting for female emancipation and freedom. Feminism has spread far across the globe. Its ideals and values have been adopted and embraced by women of different cultures and faiths. There's no denying that movements that identify as feminist have made significant contribution to women's social, political, and economic.
Now, I want to say something too. With Islam, we already have the feminist thing covered. Some of the best sheikha, rahimahullah, where Aisha, may Allah be more pleased with her, she narrated like the majority of hadiths. Let's say the founder of a school, I think the founder of Timbuktu, one of the financiers of Timbuktu, in my neck of the woods, it was a she that financed what we know as Timbuktu today. When it comes to in Morocco, I think there was a woman, I think her name was Al-Zahara. She financed the university as well, you know what I mean, in Morocco. This is pre-colonial time. So, we already had that covered in Islam. You know what I mean? I have to let my laptop charge right now. But what I will, well, actually, hold on. Give me a second. Yeah, maybe I will just do this for now. Inshallah. Okay. Yeah, I'll just do this for now so I can get this point across. Um, so what I'm saying is that we already had that covered. We already had like women's rights covered in Islam. We didn't need feminism for that, you know. Um, we already had, you know, women scientists, women, you know what I mean? The only downside was when cultural aspects hindered those kind of things. You know what I mean? There were cultural aspects that hindered it, but it didn't mean that you know, women didn't have rights in Islam. I mean, women, you know, historically speaking, they've always had rights in Islam. You know, but let's continue.
Economic privilege, bringing to light many injustices and cases of abuse in the private and public realm.
We're all here because we care deeply about the well-being of women, and we want to promote a safe and productive environment for women. That means equal pay for equal work.
But modern feminism has also sparked a great deal of controversy. Its goals and intentions have been questioned by conservative groups. Many communities have undermined its methodology, arguing that its goals threaten the traditional family and are at odds with physical reality. Undoubtedly, the notion of justice between the two genders is regarded by most people as a universal ethical standard that's worth fighting for. But what this justice truly looks like in practice is a point of contention and debate. What constitutes a basic human right for women? And at what point does feminism begin to undermine its own principles, as critics suggest? This documentary explores modern feminism, its contributions to, as well as the challenges it has presented for society.
Hold on, let me see. Yeah, because this one is pretty long. Hold on. Okay, let's see.
The biggest reason that feminism is not coherent with Islam at all, doesn't matter what madhab of feminism you choose to ascribe to, but they're all rooted really in self-worship and materialism, which are completely incoherent with Islam.
Yeah, and so that's what I want to say too, is that, you know, when you look at feminism today in the West, like, and I got faulted for this, by the way. When I, for example, wanted to center, you know, in the West, I wanted to center my heart being clean and my progression, my, you know, getting into a better place over women. The first thing you hear is, oh, he's gay. Oh, he can't get women. Oh, he's weird. Oh, he's a dusty. You hear these talking points and things like that. Because when you look at feminism today, which I hate to say it does involve, like, I guess women wanting to be worshipped. That's why they call themselves goddesses. That's why they say, oh, you know, the matriarchy has to rule and this, that, and a fourth. That would be contrary to Islam, because if you worship anything other than God, you know, that's shirk. And that's the biggest sin of Islam, is shirk be Allah. So again, you know, this sister makes a very, very valid point. But let's continue.
So if that's the case, why do so many Muslim women go towards feminism?
Yes, great question. A few reasons. Firstly, I think that a lot of sisters, unfortunately, do lack a fundamental understanding of what is Islam. If a feminist of any kind were to come and sit with me on a table, maybe we'll agree on a few things, but that does not mean that they're Muslim, and it doesn't mean that I'm a feminist. right? The same way that I might agree with a Christian on a few things, or a Jew on a few things, or an atheist on some things. It doesn't mean that I'm now a Muslim atheist or a Muslim Christian or anything like this. Is obviously be crazy. I don't think anybody would make these claims, but for some reason, it's not really a secret, but for some reason, quote unquote, when it comes to feminism, all of a sudden we can mesh feminism and Islam, even though they're, like I just explained, they're very opposite to one another.
So, and that's the thing about the Islamic knowledge. I even have a book. I even have a book right now that's preparing me for my future role as a husband. I have a book that even gives the rights of what the rights the wife has over you and what the rights the husband has over the wife. And if I were to read this book to, like, let's just say to a random Muslim woman, she would disagree with a lot of the points in the book, although it's rooted in Quran and Sunnah. It's rooted in the Hadith. It's rooted in the prophetic narration. Let me just hold on. Let me see. Let me just find one Hadith. Hold on. Let me see. I'm gonna just read from this book. Okay. Okay, hold on. Give me 1 minute. I'm just going to read a quick hadith in this book. Okay, let me see. Give me 1 minute. I'm going to read a hadith from this book. Okay, I'll just read this hadith right here, and then I'll read another one, maybe. And a lot of them will not like it, but I'll read it. An Abi Abbas Marufa La'na Rasul Allahu sallallahu alayhi wasallam mutashabihati min nisa'i bi rijali wa mutashabihina min rijali bi nisa'i. So what that hadith means, it means that, on authority of Ibn Abbas, radiyallahu an, marfu'an, the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, cursed women who imitate men and men who imitate women. This hadith, and now here's what the commentator says about it. Here's what the commentator is going to say. This hadith shows that it is unlawful for either sex to imitate the other. Such imitation causes deviation from the natural disposition that Allah has created people upon. It is an alternation of Allah's creation. A woman's imitation of men increases the secretion of male hormones within her over that of female hormones. Thus, she loses her original female nature. Her husband will then not be interested in her and will desire someone else. And she too will desire someone else. Likewise, when a man imitates a woman, the female hormones within him increases and he loses the characteristics and particularities of manliness. His wife will thus have an aversion to him, and he will have an aversion to her. Both of them will incline towards abnormality, and the community will morally disintegrate and be internally destroyed. This in turn will indicate the ruin of the entire Ummah and its being deprived of the right to life. It will be swept away by daily diseases and lethal destructive illnesses. Nations are nothing but their morals. Now, this is a very important point because even myself in America, I actually dodged a couple of bullets myself, and this was because of conviction. This was because I had a conviction and I had to control myself. But I was actually surprised with the amount of women who actually are openly spreading STDs because of their bitterness in getting an STD from a guy that they were with. So it's like they have the mentality that, okay, if I have it, everybody else has to have it. So, I often found it kind of like odd when a woman would maybe make a move on me because, how they feel about like approaching and things like that. I found it odd, but then, when I denied the approach, a lot of time I would find out later on that that woman who approached had a STD, or had some kind of STI. I will find out. So that's just proof of that hadith being true. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna read one more hadith, and then I'm gonna go into like how because they decided to adopt these ways, how it basically affects what we see going on right now. I'm go into that real quick. Yeah, give me a second. Yeah, I'm gonna go into that real quick. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Okay. So, one more hadith, and then I'll continue on with commentary on the dangers of like external things getting into Islam. And this just shows that Islam is the truth. When you look at the hadith and when you look at the Quran, it just shows that Islam is the truth, and the things that where we talk about are like just appearing before our very eyes. It just lets you know that Islam is the truth. Okay, so now let's get into another one. Okay, so on Abi Huraira marfu'ah ida okay ida kanat inda rajuli marat atani walam yahdi bainahuma ja'a yawma qiyamati wa shikuhu sa'a kitu wa fi rawayat wa shikuhu ma'a ilu. And so it says, on the authority of Abu Huraira, if a man has 2 wives and he is not equitable between them, he will come on the day of standing and half of him will be sinking. And in another narration, half of him will be slanting. And this is coming from Al-Tirmidhi, Al-Hakim. And so I'm gonna read the instruction, like the description of the hadith, and then I'll go into maybe one more video since I've been on here for like 2 hours down near. Yeah, sometimes I get carried away. But it says this hadith shows that it is obligatory to be equitable between wives in terms of expenditure and accommodation, not in terms of love and what one's heart inclines towards. For that is not within the capacity of Allah's slave. The same goes for intercourse because it is subordinate to how the soul is affected and stimulated, which can happen at certain times and not at others. The great scholar As-Sabuni, rahimahullah, says the permissibility of polygamy is one of the glorious features of the Islamic revealed law because it is able to solve one of the most complicated problems that nations and communities suffer from today. There are overwhelming causes that make polygamy a necessity, such as the barrenness of a wife, of her being ill, such that she cannot keep her husband chaste. Then there are wars and there are epidemics that men are exposed to, after which there are greater numbers of women than there are of men. A community is like a scale. Its two sides have to be balanced, i.e., there has to be an equal number of men and women. When this balance is disturbed and the number of the women is several times that of men, what do we do? Do we deny women the blessings of marriage and motherhood and leave to follow a path of harlotry and vice, as it is happening in Europe now? Or do we solve this problem using noble and virtuous ways that have been brought by the Islamic revealed law, which permits polygamy? Thereby, we protect the nobility of woman, the purity of the family, and the welfare of the community. There is a qualification condition that must be fulfilled in order to permit this necessity, which is equity between the wives. If equity is not realized, confining oneself to one wife is obligatory due to the exalted one statement. Then marry other permissible women, 2, 3, or 4. But if you are afraid not being equitable with them, then only one. And so this is a very important point, because what we see right now, especially going on in the Western world, is that a small group of guys are getting the majority of women because those group of women believe that they're entitled to a certain type of guy. And what happens is these groups of women are going for that one certain type of guy, but that certain type of guy is not having the responsibility of marrying them because of the simple fact that, as the book said, harlotry and vice is like the norm in the West. So, this is how things are working as of right now. This is how it's going right now. So and you have teachers, unfortunately, who are pushing these narratives. So I mean, I want to rather than show like how crazy the Muslim feminists are, I want to show how like the harlotry of the West is happening as compared to as I read from the Hadith. Hold on. Let me find it. Or maybe I can find something in my what you call it? Maybe I can find something in my thing. Hold on. Give me 1 minute. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. And that'll probably end this stream. Let me see. Okay, let's just go with this one. Let's just go with this.
And for those I didn't answer here, you have dated millionaire men in the past.
I have. I worked at the stock exchange, so that was my environment. So that was what I was around. So that's what I had.
Have you ever been married?
Guys, the content well seems to never be running dry around here. What can I say? We got to get into this video. Kendra G.
The boy, I love her. Hey, baby. Oh, she's so fine.
Hey!
A woman, 3 children, all adults, but 3 children, 2 different baby fathers, and she's searching for a millionaire. Let's get into it.
It's a young Claire Huxtable. Boy, I love her. Hey, baby.
So this is very important because I want to say something. People like Kendra G and the like thereof, like these podcast bros and stuff like that, they actually encourage the harlotry because it gives them views. But they're going to be held responsible on the day of judgment for the damage that they're actually causing. Because if you can point me out one successful scenario on the Kendra G show that led to someone getting married, I'll PayPal you money. I'll PayPal you some money. If you can give me one success story that actually led to a marriage, a healthy relationship, and what have you, I'll PayPal you some money. But again, and then the other sad thing, and I've been seeing this on TikTok as well, is that yes, you have like these Muslim feminists, but then you have these Muslim men who become what they call in the West a pick-me, and they use the same feminist talking points, which are contrary to Islam, you know.
Oh, she's so fine.
Hey, you like it snatched? Okay,
Yeah.
Crystal. So Crystal's been on the show, on the online show 2 times. And her very
Go
first
ahead.
time, as we mentioned here, she said she wanted a man that made $1 million. Wait,
I'm sorry.
what's that for, Zach?
That's a fine cougar right there. You fine, Crystal. Yes, sir. Rah, you know, like that.
All right, we got Crystal. Now, Crystal's actually been on my show before. Crystal, what part of Chicago are you representing, girl?
I'm representing the Southeast side.
So the fact that she's been on the show multiple times and she hasn't had any success should tell you something. You know, that should tell you something. Like if she was on the show more than once and yet there's no success there, what does that tell you about her situation? You know, what does that tell you? And now also, let's just also be real with ourselves. Let's just take a moment to be honest with ourselves. Do you think that she's just like going to be, she's celibate during those times? Or do you think that there is going to be someone who is rearranging her guts, which I believe in the latter option, that someone is doing that?
Side, South Shore.
Southeast side. Crystal, how old are you?
I'm 53 years old.
53 and 5. You have any kids?
I have 3 adult children.
3 adult children. That's right. Mamas want me to make sure they know they don't got kids. They got adult children. How old are your 3 adult children?
I have a 30-year-old, a 23-year-old, and a 19-year-old. 24,
Okay.
19. I'm sorry. They just turned
24, 19. 24,
Yes.
19. All by the same man?
2 different ones. My oldest child has a separate father than the other 2.
Okay. Have you ever been married?
Never been married.
Never married. And what you do for a living, Crystal?
I am a realtor and a business owner.
Realtor and business owner. All right, Crystal, what kind of man you looking for?
I'm looking for a man that understands how they want to interact with the woman in their life. So I'm looking for a man that wants to treat me very, very well, and that I can reciprocate the same in return.
Okay. Now,
it's very important to know that when they say this, okay, it's usually coming after a place where the men before did not treat them well, but now you're supposed to treat them well. But the thing is, she's not going to reciprocate in the way that she says that she is. You know, that's what it usually that's where it usually comes down to. Right? I believe that for the majority of these women, they believe that simply just being there, sitting down, and being not even like more so, or not being mentally or spiritually present with you is enough. So again, this comes from a place of, it just comes from a place of they believe that the world owes them something. But let's proceed.
Now, Crystal's been on the show before. Crystal, Crystal kind of, they was coming for Crystal because Crystal had a high money requirement. So do you want to reset? What was your money requirement, Crystal?
So when I first came on the show, I said that I wanted a millionaire. And in my opinion, I don't think that that is a very difficult achievement to place yourself in the room of. Because when you're looking for something, you're supposed to place yourself in whatever it is that you want for yourself, and you're supposed to know what you deserve and what you want.
Let me go ahead.
So when you listen to her, right? The question then I would ask, this is the question I would then ask if I, because I try to have common sense. I do try to have common sense. So the question I would then ask is, do you think that what you're looking for, that person is looking, the opposite person is looking for that as well? Do you think that that person is looking for what you are looking for? That's the question I would then ask. Do you think that person is looking for a person who has 3 kids from 2 different fathers? Is that caliber of man that you require? Is he looking for that too?
Go ahead and break this part down real quick, because this is absolutely just kind of sad when you really think about it. This one,
Back on that, I can to impact your life. You should.
She hasn't been able to do this for herself.
To impact your life. Say that I was looking for a millionaire. I don't think that anyone can put a determination on what you should want to impact your life. You should want the best. So I didn't know it would ruffle so many feathers.
Right. Okay. So now is the millionaire, is that still the money requirement for your book?
I don't want to put a number on it, because as I reflect back on that, I can admit to something. And I do think that might not have been the best thing to put out there.
You think?
So I would just say that I'm looking for someone that has the ability and the desire to treat a woman extremely well. That would be, with a lot of respect, admiring the qualities that I bestow as a woman.
So this is very important because she used the word bestow as if she's like some kind of deity. And unfortunately, a lot of these women think that, a lot of these women think that they're like some kind of deity, and there goes the problem. This is where we have the problem. This is where we see the disconnect, so to say, because we know, like, we have the Quranic, because when you look at everything in the Quran, everything is making sense if you have like the right teachers and the right understanding. Everything makes sense. So the creation of man and woman is supposed to be one of cohesiveness, not of one that is like, okay, I have to look at you above me, even if that means you look at me below you. And that's what it sounds like she wants, basically.
I can bring to the table to you and enhance your manhood. And in order for those things to happen.
So this is very important too, when she says enhance your manhood. I mean, how are you going to do that? You know, that's just something that I think comes within a man. You know, I think that's just something that by default it comes like inside of a man.
Happen, it requires a certain level of prestige to put your to for in order for that to actually manifest and take place, in my opinion. So I want someone that wants to travel the world, that likes to do fine dining, that really wants to have a soft life and give that to their woman.
Okay. Are you open to all races?
I'm definitely open to all races because I think when you are looking to achieve a certain caliber of lifestyle for yourself with someone in the process, I definitely think that you cannot limit yourself in doing that. And I think if you limit yourself to saying, I'm only going to date this race of people, I think that that is limiting what you're trying to manifest.
So again, you know, you hear them use these kind of words, you know, these kind of like these common words manifesting things of that nature. You hear them kind of using these same terms. And then you hear her say that, you know, she wants fine whining, she wants soft life, she wants all of these things. You before heard her that she's a real estate agent and she's a business owner. So why do you need a man for these things if you yourself, I would hope, could afford these things yourself? If you know, why do you want a man for that? You know, I will hope that with your business acumen and you being a real estate agent, you will be able to afford it yourself. You know, and I show this to show that a lot of Muslims are getting caught. A lot of Muslim women are getting caught up in the twist. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you one more video of that, and then I'm going to end the stream after I react to this.
Okay, Crystal. Let me ask you this question. So if you met a man and he was nice and kind, but couldn't afford to travel the world and for you guys to go to the finest restaurants, does this guy have an option? And if he doesn't, he doesn't. Just curious.
No, and in all honesty, maybe an option for a very good friendship. But as far as for my personal life, I'm just not looking for someone that I have to limit myself with. And if I could say this, Kendra, a lot of times it's like, well, you know, can you afford those things for yourself? Well, yes, I do. When I want to go to fine restaurants, I take myself there. When I want to go travel, I take myself traveling. So what I want, I present for myself. And that's what I want from someone else, is to enhance and do the same things that I'm interested in doing.
And there you have it. All right, Crystal, come on out so we can see your fine self in person.
And then the thing is about the host, and this is very important. The thing is about the host, she can't even hold down a relationship herself. And so therefore it's like kind of bad that, you know, these people get on the show and then they try to think that, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the bad thing about it.
Zach, you gotta have $1 million in the bank.
I know. I want $1 million too. We gonna find one together.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so Crystal, what is the challenge you think you're having with dating in Chicago?
I think the challenge that I'm having with dating in Chicago is that I'm honestly probably not taking advantage of the environments that I should.
Okay, so you need to go out more.
I need to go out more.
You need to go out more. So money really matters.
I definitely think that money matters. I don't think it should be the primary focus and the center of everything, because in the end, it's all about being loved, having companionship, having someone that you can spend the rest of your life with. But money matters. It just does. It's just a fact.
And for those I didn't ask it here, you have dated millionaire men in the past.
I have. I worked at the stock exchange, so that was my environment. So that was what I was around. So that's what I had.
Have you ever been married?
I've never been married.
Proposed to?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever been proposed to?
I was proposed to. I was engaged. I'll say I was engaged to my person I was with for many, many years.
Was he a millionaire?
He was a millionaire. He's made millions of dollars.
What happened?
I mean, none of that matters because he didn't marry her. Her children's fathers aren't millionaires. So essentially she dated men who had money. And how many women, young or old, say that?
What happened is just that we could not get on the same accord, the same page. It is very.
So, I mean, again, that shows where polygamy would come into play here, because then, like, if someone, like, for example, if a man agreed in like polygamy, right? Then he would more or less say, okay, I'm gonna make you my co-wife. If you're okay with that arrangement, then that's fine. I'm going to take care of you the same way, that I would my other women. But the thing is, what I believe happened is that he probably had a lineup of women and she wanted to be numero uno. And he was like, well, that's not happening. I'm not stopping what I have going on for you to basically like shut that down. That's pretty much what I kind of believe that's what happened. That's just my personal opinion, that I believe that she basically did not like that. And so he said, where it is what it is, I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. And that's what it's just going to be. And I think that's the reason why she did not like that's why they couldn't agree with one another. That's just my personal opinion. That I don't know what the story is at all, but my personal opinion, I think that was the issue at hand.
Very difficult to get someone on the same page when you're growing and developing together. So that's what happened. He was living his life. He was out there making things happen for himself, meeting plenty of women and doing different things. And eventually you get tired of that.
This is sad, man. I mean, this is really sad, because you would think that as people in general, as you get older, you become more mature, you become wiser, you gain more clarity when it comes to what's really.
Okay, so I mean, that pretty much explains everything to us, what was happening with her situation. So let's go ahead and go to
the truly important in life. But unfortunately, then you end up running into people like this.
Okay, give me a second. I'm going to end the video. I'm going to end the stream on this. So yeah, I'm going to end the stream on this note. And then I'll just pretty much, keep it here, Okay, give me a second. Okay, let's see.
Entitlement of the modern Muslim.
It's gonna have to be 50K.
50K.
A little bit of gold, actually a lot. And then it's
A lot of gold,
to be
okay.
a G-Wagon.
G-Wagon.
A house in the blood. Hey!
The house in the bloods. Right. Okay,
So this just goes to show you, they've like pretty much like just drank the Kool-Aid when it comes to like the talking points The talking points are non-Muslim women. You know what I mean? They've drinking the Kool-Aid and things like that. Uh, luckily with me, with my wife to be, the Maher, you know, um, because she come from like middle class family and things like that. I just said, okay, I give you a little bit more than what you would expect as like in middle class, but not too much more. I just struck a balance. I said, okay, I think this is good enough amount. And yeah, everybody agreed and things like that. And so again, though, I could never do that in America. Again, because foreign ideologies enter Islam that have entered in America and the West overall. I would have had to pay like six figures for my hair and some other stuff. So I decided not. I wasn't going to do that because Muslim women in the West, they're a lot of the time they're insufferable as well. You know, because unfortunately they don't love Islam. They love everything opposed to Islam. But maybe I come back on tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe I come back on maybe I come back on during the weekend. But I just my point, my initial point of the stream was just to express my personal opinion on Muslims who want to assimilate in the West. They want to be part of political things in the West. They want people to accept them as Muslims in the West. They want people to, basically accommodate them in the West. This was just my response. Your energy is in the wrong place. That's all I was saying. But if you tuned in, thank you for tuning in. And I'll probably see you on the next one. Okay. As we say over here, since I'm learning the language over here, of course, we have the greetings of Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, but in the local dialect, the greeting of goodbye is Salbut. So I will give you the greeting of goodbye by saying Salbut.